Welcome to the latest episode of the Gull-Mouth Action podcast, where we take a look at all the latest goings-on at Brighton and Hove, Albion and Crawley Town. I'm Mark Dunford, and this week I'm joined by Brighton writer Derren Howard and Sam Morton, who keeps an eye on both the Albion and the Reds. In the second half, Derren will be taking over hosting duties to ask me about Crawley Town. We had a reversal of fortunes from last week, with Seagulls producing a superb display to beat Leeds, while Scott Lindsay's men had a disastrous weekend, going out of the FA Cup to lower league opposition. This week, we'll look back at Albion's win at the Amex, look ahead to the weird derby clash thing they have with Crystal Palace, and have a look at Crawley's FA Cup shambles. You can read all the stories we are talking about with videos and pictures online at sussexworld.co.uk/sport. So we'll open up with the Leeds game. Danny Welbeck scored the opening goal against Daniel Farke's Leeds with his 6th of the season. Brighton then came out strongly in the second half, and 2 goals from Paraguay midfielder Diego Gomez sealed the 3 points. What did you make of the performance, Derren, and how important was it to finally keep a clean sheet?
Yeah, a very good display from Brighton. It's a game, those type of games Brighton have struggled with in the past, where they're at home and the expectation is to beat one of the teams that are, perhaps not expected to do, to be challenging at the top end. And it's games that Brighton have really come unstuck in, and it's caused frustration amongst the fans about in the past. So to get the result against Leeds in the manner that they did was really encouraging for Fabian Herzella and the team. And it was important because they'd had a rough week. They went away to Manchester United, lost 4-2. They didn't put in their best performance at Old Trafford. And then that was swiftly followed by the Carabao Cup exit against Arsenal. So where they lost 2-0 at the Emirates. So it was a tough week. It would have been easy for confidence to have been low. But they hit back in style. And it was that man again, Danny Welbeck, who, as you say, he got his sixth goal of the season. And he really is. He looks very sharp, very lively in and around the box. And it was a nice goal, actually, the opening goal. Very good build-up play from Yankuba Minte, clever pass. And Matt Swiefer, who was playing in the right-back position, he was overlapping onto the right flank, delivered a nice cutback into a good area. And Welbeck was lurking and very alert and produced a nice finish. But 1-0 up for Brighton against the team. Those teams have been so edgy in the past, and you feared the worst. You're thinking, they've only got the 1 goal. But the second half performance was particularly impressive. They came out on the front foot, and Diego Gomez playing on the left-hand side in place of Karam Matoma, who's still sidelined with an ankle injury. And he looked good. He was not only his goals, but he was a threat going forward throughout as well. Linked the play very well. Looks glided past the defenders on a few of the occasions as well. And his late movement and arrivals into the box is what really impressed me. I thought the timing of his runs were very good. And then he finished well as well. So not only can he deliver the spectacular long-range efforts that we saw from him in the Carabao Cup, but he's also shown that he can make these late runs into the box and be clinical in front of goal, which Brighton really need. There goes the fire test. And I don't need to evacuate, so
that's good.
Okay. So, all good for Brighton. A very good performance, very good result, and sets up nicely, as you say, ahead of the Crystal Palace match as well.
Welbeck's recent form has increased calls for an England recall. Rio Ferdinand, Wayne Rooney, Alan Shearer among those who have all backed him. Thomas Tuchel is expected to announce his England squad later this week ahead of that international break. What do you think, Sam? Should the 34-year-old be back in?
Absolutely. I think it's hard to ignore him. I think at this point now, with the form that he's in, obviously 6 goals in 5 games, and he's kind of just going into every game, and you're almost expecting a goal from him at the moment. Obviously, his goal against Leeds was, as we said, is quite an easy finish, but he had to be in that right area to score it, showing his striker instinct, and obviously he showed he's great from set pieces as well. He scored a brilliant free kick against Man United the week before, which can be really valuable for England as well. Obviously, have a free kick in the 90th minute of a game to win it. You never know. And I think obviously it's not just goals. He brings movement, link-up play and defensive work off the ball that can really be valuable for England. And it's really great to see Welbeck in this form, really. He obviously last played for England in a friendly win over Switzerland in 2018. He has 42 caps and 16 international goals. His tally is only being beaten by Harry Kane and Marcus Rashford out of the current England squad. And he's been backed, as we've mentioned, by former players in kind of big kind of names have come out and said that he really should be there. I think Wayne Rooney's among them. He said Welbeck scores goals, works hard. He's having a purple patch, and he's put himself in a position where Tuchel will definitely have to look at him. Behind Harry Kane, he's the most informed England striker, and he's given himself a chance. All-time Premier League record goal scorer Alan Shearer also backed him on Match of the Day. He said he has to be considered because of his form and goals. He's only been in double figures once in his career, and that was last season. There was no doubt about it that he seems to be getting better. He said England are not exactly better numbers in that centre-forward position, so absolutely he deserves it. He helped set up the third goal with his work rate. It's closing down, and he's having a fabulous season. He is getting better. And we actually spoke to Welbeck after the Leeds match, and he revealed a little bit more about a dressing room or club meeting where Fabian and Hertzler actually asked players to raise their hands that they think Welbeck should be in the England squad next year. Welbeck said it wasn't like a big thing, just the start of a meeting where we went in and Hertzler said, hands up if you think Welbeck should play for England. And he kind of said with a bit of a smile that everyone's hands went up that he saw, but he was at the front and he wasn't really turning around to see who was putting their hands up. But it did seem like the overall majority at the very least were absolutely keen for him to be back in the squad. And he kind of played down the talk. He said he can only do what he can control. He's confident in his ability, and he's obviously happy that he can perform at the highest level, but he can only focus on what he can focus on. And he wasn't too keen to make any bold statements about asking Tuchel to pick him or anything like that. But I think with all the evidence that there's been at the moment, and obviously the high profile names that are calling him to be in the squad, I think Thomas Tuchel can't really ignore it, I think.
No, absolutely. There is. I mean, Ollie Watkins was obviously the obvious successor to begin with, but there's sort of no one else really at the moment, is there? They could play up top. I mean, Rashford you would play off the left or the right or whatever, but there's no one else, is there really?
No, I did a piece on Sussex World a little while back, just looking at all of the other options that could be there with Welbeck, and other than Ollie Watkins, who hasn't really. He started quite slowly this season. If Tuchel's picking on form, then I would say Welbeck would be ahead of Ollie Watkins. And then you've got Dominic Solanke, who's been injured. Liam Delap at Chelsea, he's been injured and then he got sent off. So he needs to have a really strong second half of the season. And then, like you say, you're left with sort of Rashford, Anthony Gordon, Bowen, the players who are more predominantly on the wide areas. So, if I'd have been in that meeting, I'd have put my hand up.
Let's vote now. All want Welbeck in the squad.
Hands up. Get him in there.
Absolutely. So but before England return to action, Brighton have the small matter of facing their old rivals Crystal Palace in the Premier League this Sunday at Selhurst Park. I think it's 2:00 kickoff. Palace are ninth in the table, just 1 point and one place above the Seagulls. This looks nicely poised, doesn't it, Derren?
It does, yes, all looking very good. Palace have to play AZ Alkmaar in Europe on Thursday night, so that's something that could have a big effect, couldn't it? In terms of their recovery time and getting ahead. Brighton have obviously had, they played on Saturday against Leeds, so they've had a full 7-8 days to prepare for the Palace game. So I would think that would work in Brighton's advantage. Ahead of the match, but it's always an eagerly anticipated match. I think when the fixtures first come out, it's one of the first that Brighton fans look for, and they will go there because of the win against Leeds. I think they will go there with a lot of confidence. But Crystal Palace they're a solid, very solid team at the moment. Obviously, FA Cup winners as well. So. It's going to be a hard match. I think Fabian Hertzler, he lost both the matches against Crystal Palace last season, and he's already touched upon that to say he didn't go into too much details. The Crystal Palace press conference is going to be tomorrow, where I'm sure he will talk more about this. But it's already something that he's raised voluntarily, that he hasn't managed to, he wasn't even questioned on it. And he was speaking about the Palace game and saying that he didn't get a win against them last season. And that really bothered him. And I think they're going to be all guns blazing for this one and try and get a victory against their old rivals. He said it was disappointing that he couldn't deliver it for the fans as much as for himself. But I think personally, he knows what it means to the club. He knows what it means to the fans. And he's determined to get a victory at Selhurst Park. So there's going to be a couple of other players as well. Jorginho Rutter, he missed both the games last season with injury. So it's going to be the first time he's played in a Brighton Palace match as well. He spoke a little bit about it after the game against Leeds as well. So it's a game that he will be looking forward to. Rutter and Welbeck are going to be quite key in those positions as well as an attacking players. So I think Welbeck, with the form he's in, he's going to be a danger, and with Rutter playing and getting up to speed again, he's still showing signs that he's getting back to his best as well. So I think Brighton are going in there in a good moment, and I think they've got a very good chance of getting a positive result this time.
Yeah, Palace are going well under Oliver Glasner, aren't they, Sam? And they won the FA Cup last season, competing in Europe for the first time this season. What have you made of them under Glasner, and who are the danger men to look out for?
Yeah, no, they are a really strong team, actually, Palace, and there's a reason why Brighton fans were disappointed that he ended up staying at the club, because obviously there were talks that he there were rumours anyway that he would leave if Mark Gahey was allowed to go to Liverpool, which funny enough didn't happen because Igor went to West Ham and Palace didn't have a replacement lined up on deadline day. So it's all a bit surreal, especially when you consider that Igor has barely featured for West Ham after all that. But yeah, no, I think they're a really strong team. They've become much harder to break down under Glasner, sitting among the best in the Premier League for restricting opponents' shots on target and expected goals against. I think the defensive players are really strong. I mentioned Mark Gahey, one of the best around. There's a reason why Liverpool wanted to break the bank even more after the money they spent in the summer to get him in. I think we've seen from Liverpool's struggles as well this season why they wanted him in as well. Lacroix as well complements Gahey really nicely at the back, and then they've obviously got Daniel Munoz on the right that just contributes with goals constantly. He's an assist machine, quite often for Mateta, who's obviously an aerial threat in the centre, and he's someone that Duncan Van Heck will have to be wary of as well. And Ismail Assar as well. He's a player I rate really highly from midfield, chips in with goals. Obviously got a couple in the recent Carabao Cup game against Liverpool. And while Palace don't dominate possession, they capitalise on transitions, counters and set-piece situations. And I find it really impressive how they keep improving, how they've still maintained their level, I should say, despite losing really key players. I think obviously when Elise went to Bayern Munich, that was a big blow, but they recovered well. And Eze as well, you thought him going to Arsenal would really really kind of affect Palace, and they've coped really well, which is similar to Brighton really. It's two similarities between the two sides about being able to cope with losses of big players. So that's a credit to Glasner as well, getting the best out of the players that he has, and I think it's all set up for a really good game. As we've said, Palace at 9th in the league, just one place and 1 point above Brighton. They've scored 3 fewer goals, 14 than Albion, but conceded 6 fewer as well than their rivals. Just 9 goals conceded this season. And as we've said, they won both of their games against Brighton last season, so it'll be high on the agenda to avoid a third successive defeat and reclaim some bragging rights for Brighton.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there any updates on injuries and that, Derren?
Well, we're going to find out a bit more tomorrow in the press conference, but I'm hopeful that they should have a couple of the players back. The long-term absentees, Solly March, Adam Webster, obviously the game's going to be too soon for them. Jack Hinchelwood, I don't expect to be back. I think he's going to be at least maybe a week after the international break, and maybe another week or so further along as he recovers from his ankle injury. The 3 potential players who could be involved are Karim Atoma. He's been out with an ankle injury. He last featured against Chelsea. We spoke to Herzler about this last week, and he often refers to it as, just a small issue, it's nothing major, but it's now, 5 games he's been missing for, and it's you've heard this in the past where Brighton, where they, the word from the club is that it's only a small issue, and then it can go on into weeks, and then sometimes months. But the hope is that Matoma is a small issue, but the longer he's out for, the more questions it raises. So there will be the hope that he is back to face Crystal Palace. Whether he will start or not, though, is another matter if he is fit, because Gomez played so well in that left-sided position against Leeds. So it would be unlikely that Herzella will change that position, even if Mitoma is fit. So that's one to keep an eye on. Brian Gruder as well. He's been out since the Wolves match. He hasn't featured since the last international break. He's still working his way back from a knee injury. If he's available, he could be challenging for the playmaker position on the number 10 role. But again, I expect Jorginho to fill that spot at Selhurst Park, even if Gruder is available. The other one is Joel Veltman as well. He hasn't played for 4 or 5 matches as he continues his recovery from a calf injury. Once again, if he's fit, I don't think he will start, because I think Matt Swiffer will play that right back slot. I think Herzella prefers Swiffer there at the moment because he offers a bit more going forward. Veltman's very good, obviously, defensively, has a lot of know-how and a lot of experience. But I think Swiffer just adds that extra bit of dynamism which he showed as he set up Welbeck for the first goal. So the 3 players that are coming back, I think even if they are fit, I don't think they're going to be starting, but they may be included in the matchday squad.
Oh, good stuff. We'll see how that goes. And now we're going to swap. Me and Derren are swapping bodies, and he's going to ask questions about Crawley Town.
Yeah, good stuff. So now, yes, and let's have a look at Crawley Town. They terrible result. They lost 3-0 at Bournemouth in the FA Cup, adding to their woes this season so far. What happened there, Mark, and what did Scott Lindsay have to say about that result?
Well, he was quite blunt, to be honest. He said embarrassing and disgusting was how he described the performance. It started off badly. They were 2-0 down after 15 minutes, and then they sort of all went wrong from there. Ryan Loft was sent off just on the stroke of half time, and by all accounts, it could have been 4, 5, 6-0, and it would have made it even more embarrassing than it was. But yeah, Lindsay just said it was an embarrassing, disgusting performance. Wasn't up to it. Didn't want to run hard. Didn't want to press. We wanted to press, but giving them so much room to play through our press, which wasn't the game plan. The game plan was totally the opposite of that. They were just poor. Then we get the man sent off. And he just said it was just a horrendous afternoon. And it really is. I mean, after the result the weekend before, beating Bristol Rovers 4-0, being hopefully spirits high, a good run in the FA Cup always helps. I mean, some people see it as a distraction. But when you're bottom of the league, you just want to keep winning and just anything to keep you. And you're playing a team from National League. They are a good side, Boreham Wood, and they have had a good season. But you should still go out and beat them. But by all accounts, very, very poor. And yeah, the fans were not happy in the slightest with this. Nobody seems to be blaming Scott Lindsay fully for it. There's a couple of people questioning the team selection, but he kept with the same side that beat the team 4, and it was the first time this year he was able to start the same starting 11 as the previous game. So he's been calling for consistency, gets the chance to play the same team that he played the week before, which won 4-0, and then they perform like that. So the consistency is a big, big problem for Lindsay and the players at the moment, but hopefully they can turn it around. We keep saying hopefully they can turn it around, but when they get a good result, it's followed up by a poor result and a poor performance. So yeah, things have got to improve, and Lindsay's got quite the job on his hand this season, and it's a shame we haven't got the FA Cup run. I mean, watching the FA Cup second round draw with no Sussex involvement at all was very disappointing on Monday night. Just not interested who Barrow are playing or Burnell, Town or whatever they were called. Yeah, ridiculous. Very, very disappointing. And yeah, Lindsay, very honest in his post-match. Yeah, embarrassing and disgusting.
Yeah, very. A real shame. There was a bit of debate, Sam, whether this was a shock or not, because the respective seasons both sides were having. What are your views on that? Was it a shock or not? And how much of a disastrous result is that for Scott Lindsay and Crawley?
Yeah, I don't think it's a shock when you consider Boreham Wood's form. Obviously, they're in the National League, just one tier below League Two, and they're second in the league, just 1 point below first place Carlisle. So when you consider it that way, there's only a couple of places that actually separate the two sides. I mean, Crawley are second bottom in League Two now. It's looking really, really precarious for them. I know only 2 teams go down, but they are one of the worst teams in the league at the moment, and you can't really say there's too many teams worse than their form, which has been the argument before now. You kind of think, there'll be 2 teams worse than Crawley, but it doesn't seem so on current form. And I mean, going into this game, it was a chance to lift spirits further. Obviously, had that big win the week before, and you kind of just hope to build on that, keep the momentum going. I know the FA Cup's not going to be the priority, but you've got to say that. We've talked about the league form, talked about how precarious the table's looking at the moment. That's going to be the priority in ensuring they don't get relegated again. And the FA Cup is obviously an aside to that, but just as a way of getting the momentum going and getting some form into the players and bringing some feel-good atmosphere back, it would have been a really nice way of doing that. And to lose in that manner against a team in the league below is never good. And I know that Boreham Wood's form is good, and I could definitely say it's not a shock. It's a match that Crawley shouldn't be losing 3-0, really. And Scott Lindsay was rightly really angry about it. And it's a problem now because obviously we've been hearing these comments from Lindsay a lot, and you kind of each time think, will this be the time that they react and improve and kind of get out of this habit of playing the way they are? But it doesn't seem to be happening. So it does beg the question of what's going to have to happen for things to change going forward. But yeah, a real shocker of a way to go out of the FA Cup. And as Mark said, such a shame not to have any Sussex teams in the draw, because it is something you look to at the end of the day, an opportunity to go deep into the FA Cup and have a bit of a dream draw and get a Premier League side eventually and bring some money into the club and all that kind of thing. So it's all really important stuff. But Scott Lindsay will know there's a massive job on his hands now to stay up in League Two.
I'm just going to add, I don't think it was a shock result. I think it was a shocking performance. I don't think. Yeah, because we did a headline saying FA Cup shock as Crawley went out, and people saying it wasn't a shock. They're a good side, blah blah blah, and all this. And I just think maybe it wasn't a shock result. I think, but the manner of the result was shocking. So
yeah, exactly that.
Yeah, just on that though, Mark, just quickly, because Scott Lindsay has come out with these comments a few times that the players haven't worked and they don't. Why aren't the players working for him? Do you think? What is the dynamic and what's happening there?
I don't know. It's very odd because I went. It was the Cambridge game where they lost 3-1. He said very similar things. If they don't want to run for me, they won't play for me, and things like that. And then obviously these comments, and he said it after a couple of defeats. I think which one was it? The Chesterfield one where they lost they drew 2-2, but they were 2-0 up and then let in 2 goals. And he was quite critical of them. Then you don't lose a game when you're 2-0 up. But it's odd because he does come across as the kind of player, and we saw it during the promotion winning season, that he's the kind of manager people want to play for.
He's a motivator.
He's a motivator. Yeah. He seems very focused, knows what he's talking about, and he puts a lot on commitment, and players have got to be playing for him and that. But it does seem to be at the moment like 1 week on, 1 week off, 1 week where they look like, we're really up for this, and then maybe it was a bit of complacency against, but maybe they thought they were going out and thinking, it's only a National League side, we'll win. But you don't expect that from a Scott Lindsay side. So there is something not quite right at the moment, but it's very difficult to put your finger on it. But Raf Jalili, the owner, did an interview with the BBC, and he was obviously asked about Scott Lindsay and the form, etc., and all that. And he said, Scott has my full backing. And he said, if we had bad people in the building and were playing bad football, it would be a completely different story. But the playing style is really important to him. Scott plays beautiful football, and the players respect him, and he has a lot of resilience. So he's definitely got the full backing. I don't think this is one of their one of those, oh, he's definitely got our backing, and then the next week he gets sacked kind of thing. I don't think those situations that you see, but everyone seems to think that they're all playing. He's got so much respect within the club, and he's still got a load of credit in the club, Scott, for what he has achieved so far. But it's very difficult to put your finger on what is actually going wrong in these specific performances, where I think Lindsay's just bewildered by it. He's just like, how does this happen? Because he always talks about how good they are in training all week. They're sticking to his plan. They're taking in all his instructions, the sort of style, etc. But it's just, it is bemusing why it isn't working all the time, and what is it that isn't clicking in certain games. Very, very odd.
Yeah. Well, hopefully he can get the results going in the right direction. One thing that didn't help was Ryan Loft was sent off for the second time this season. Mark, how did fans react to that, and how much of an impact did that have on the result?
Well, I don't know how much impact it had on the result. By all accounts, if he'd stayed on, it wouldn't have made much more difference, I don't think. But the fans were crying, because he's on loan from Cambridge United. From a lot of the comments I saw, they were happy for him to go straight back to Cambridge United. I mean, he hasn't been able to have a run in the side really because he's been sent off twice now. So he started. He impressed when because he played against Harrogate when Crawley won their first game of the season, and then he got sent off in that game, so he missed the next game. Then he came back. He scored a goal in the Virtue Trophy against Aston Villa. Then he played. Then he couldn't play against Cambridge United because of the loan deal. So he missed that game, and then he played again, and then he scored the winner against. I can't remember who it was. Scored a brilliant header, and then he gets sent off again, and it's really frustrating. He does get involved. He gets stuck in, but the sending off for Scott Lindsay was confused by. He said, I've got a good view of it. I'm walking off actually down the tunnel because I'm getting ready for half time. I've looked around, watched it, and now I've watched it back 100 times and I've zoomed in, and it appears he's got sent off for standing up. I can't see anything else. There's nothing else.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I can't remember what player it is for Boreham Wood, but he stood over Loft and said something to him. Ryan Loft stood up, and from what everyone could see, he didn't do anything else. The referee sends him off. So he's obviously said something, maybe. But he said, as Lindsay said, that he was going into half-time thinking of some changes he could make and had to try and improve for the second half. But then he can't make those changes because Ryan Loft's been sent off, so he's got to make different kinds of changes, which obviously doesn't help. So who knows? If Lindsay had made the changes he wanted to with 11 men on the pitch, it could have been a different second half. So it could have had a huge impact. But yeah, again, just another frustrating thing to happen to Crawley this season. They've had 4 players sent off this season now. Loft twice. Gavin Holohan in the Carabao Cup was sent off. It just seems. I did ask Scott last week or the week before: is there a discipline problem, or is it a reflection on the referees? And I think he was putting the whole blame on the standard of refereeing. He doesn't think is good enough. And there are things happening that he just doesn't understand. And this Ryan Loft one looks like another example of that. He's if Crawley fans had their way, I think Ryan Loft won't be playing Saturday. Well, he won't be playing Saturday. But they'd send him back to Cambridge now. But I think that's a bit harsh because from what I've seen of him, he works really hard. He's a threat which Crawley haven't had that big striker for a long time. It's normally a little striker Crawley have got, or someone who's just sort of a bit of a poacher. But he seems to work hard. He's quick. He holds the ball up well. He's good in the air. So he can be a threat, but he just needs a run in the side where he's not getting sent off, not being able to play against his parent club. Yeah, very, very annoying.
Yeah, well, hopefully it will come good for him, and hopefully Crawley can keep 11 players on the pitch more often than not this season. But on a more positive note, Reds have announced their nominations for the October Player of the Month. Who's up for it, Mark, and who do you think should win it this month?
So it's Jojo. It's an interesting one, actually, because it's Jojo Wallacott, Scott Malone and Max Anderson, 3 players who before October had hardly played. I mean, Anderson had played a few sub-appearances, Scott Malone, the odd one here and there. Jojo Wallacott wasn't really in the side because Harvey Davis, the Liverpool loanee, was in goal. But they've all had to come in because of injuries, suspensions, etc., and they've all done really well. Obviously, it never looks good when you're bottom of the table. You surprise the keepers in there, but he has pulled off some really good saves. Scott Malone, he's the old man of the team, as it were, but he's worked really hard, and he had a brilliant game against Bristol Rovers. He scored one. Effectively, he scored two, but one of them was attributed to an own goal. And he's been really, really good, Scott Malone. But I think Max Anderson has been really consistent in the sort of base of that midfield, sort of controlling the midfield. And he's sort of good transitions from defence to attack, gets stuck in, breaks up play when the opposition are attacking. I think Max Anderson's been really, really good. So, but it's just interesting that it's 3 players that in August and September weren't even in the conversation, kind of thing. So, yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, I will keep an eye on that one. And but in the meantime, the Reds are back in league action at the Broadfield Stadium when they take on Fleetwood on Saturday. They've got to forget about the FA Cup, haven't they, Mark, and recall sort of the Bristol Rovers performance for that one, haven't they?
They certainly have. They've got to get that spirit. Being back at home, Scott Lindsay always talks about how they love playing at the Broadfield Stadium in front of their home fans. And it is really important they get back on the horse and just completely forget about that FA Cup defeat. Obviously take some learnings from it, but yeah, just forget about it and focus on what they did well against Bristol Rovers. And yeah, they're second from bottom at the moment, but a win on Saturday, and obviously depending on other results, and it never quite works out there, they can go up to 19th place on goal difference, because their goal difference isn't as bad as some of the teams above them. Shrewsbury have got a worse goal difference, Cheltenham have. But it's interesting to see what Scott Lindsay does with the side. Obviously, he's going to be forced into a change with Ryan Loft missing. But it's going to be interesting to see what sort of side he goes for. He'll have Harry McCurdy back, so maybe it will just be that one straight swap. But it's going to be interesting. Fleetwood having a half-decent season. They're currently 10th in the table. They've won 6, drawn 4, lost 4. They scored 21 goals, let in 20. So they're in the sort of top half. They've got one of the worst defensive records. So hopefully that's something Crawley can add to those 4 goals they scored against Bristol Rovers. But again, every game's a must-win for them now. But it's really important they win their home games. But then they go straight into another home game on Tuesday night against Peterborough in the Virtue Trophy, which is a game they kind of got to win to get into the next round. And Scott puts a lot of value on the Virtue Trophy. I know a lot of teams don't. Peterborough are struggling in League One, so maybe Peterborough don't see that as a priority. So hopefully Crawley can take advantage of that, get a good result there, and then suddenly 2 wins on the trot. Then going into a really big game away at Gillingham on the following Saturday. So, 2 big home games coming up. If they can get 2 wins, things start to look a little bit more positive again. So, it's all about consistency. They've just got to put a good run together.
Yeah, no, it can all change quite quickly. So fingers crossed they can turn that one around. And now just looking at the score predictions, Sam, Crystal Palace versus Brighton in the Premier League this Sunday. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm going for a draw, I think. I think it's going to be an entertaining game. I'll go for 2-2.
2-2 draw. Mark, how do you see that one going?
That's exactly what I was going to say. I was going to say it's going to be a 2-2 draw. I think, hopefully it'll be a good fiery one. I reckon I'm going to make another prediction that 2 players will be sent off as well. So, but it's going to be a great atmosphere there at Selhurst Park, isn't it? So, 2-2. What do you think, Derren?
It's always a feisty one. I think the fact that Palace are playing on Thursday night could have an impact, and I think if they can keep Mateta quiet, Brighton have got a great chance of getting a win. I'm going to go for a 2-0 Brighton, I think.
Nice.
So we shall see. We shall see. But back in League Two, Mark, Crawley Town versus Fleetwood. They've got to get something from this, haven't they?
Yeah, they have, and I think they will. I think hopefully Scott Lindsay sends a rocket up the players this week in training and gets them back to where they were the previous Saturday, and I think they will. It will be nervy, and I think it will be a bit edgy because they're so scared of not losing again, I think. But I think they'll just get over the line 1-0.
I was going to say, I was going to say the same. I'm going to go for a 1-0 as well for that one. Sam, do you think Crawley can get over the line in this one?
Yeah, I'll go for the hat trick. I'll go for 2-1 Crawley.
Yeah, come on, you Reds.
Crawley.
Yeah,
come on. Yes, let's get going. And then quickly they go on to the Virtue Trophy on Tuesday. Another home game for Crawley, two in a row. Sam, what do you think of that?
I think they'll win this one. Peterborough really struggling, obviously in League One, bottom of the table. So they'll have obviously bigger things at play just as much as Crawley. So I think obviously with the home advantage, some fresh legs in the Crawley team, some opportunities for players to impress. I'll go for a 1-0 win. It'll be an edgy one.
1-0 win, yes. Mark, what do you think on that?
Yeah, I think Crawley will win this. I think Crawley will take it not more seriously. That's the wrong word, but put more on this game, and I think they will win 3-1. I think it will be a really good performance, and it will give Scott Lindsay more food for thought about who he plays the following week against Gillingham.
Yeah, well, I'm going to go for a Crawley win as well for that one. I'm going to go for a 2-1 to Crawley.
God, it's a good week for Crawley if they all come in, isn't it? God.
If they come in, that will be. I'm sure Scott Lindsay will be much happier this hopefully. But anyway, you can catch up with all the latest sports news covering everything we've talked about at sussexworld.co.uk. But in the meantime, thanks for joining us, Mark, and thanks very much, Sam, as well.